probably know that I believe it was with Citizens United, corporations were given a legal standing in court. They have rights like people do. So one possibility is, why don't we give nature rights in court? Why can't the river have rights? Why can't animals have rights? Why can't mountains and forests have rights? And then we would appoint legal guardians who could speak for these beings in court. So that's kind of called the rights of nature movement. And the there are folks in the legal system that are working to make that happen. And I'll give you examples a little bit later of places in the world where it actually already has happened and where it's managed to maintain the integrity of some natural thing in the world because of that. Another is the public trust doctrine, and it's a principle that holds that a state's government has the duty to hold certain natural resources like navigable waters, submerged lands, in trust for the public. This means the government has to manage these resources for public use, such as commerce, navigation, fishing, recreation, and cannot grant exclusive private ownership that would harm public access or public trust. And this really started during Roman law, but we've totally lost that in our legal system. Another one is the rights of future generations. And actually there was a group of young people in Oregon who, let's see, I want to make sure I get the right one here. It was called the Juliana case in the United States. And they brought a constitutional climate lawsuit, 21 young people from Oregon in 2015, which argued that the United States government's policies promoting fossil fuels, think disturbing the Arctic, doing fossil fuel in the Gulf of Mexico, not Gulf of America, which argued that the US government's policies promoting fossil fuels violated their fundamental rights to life, liberty, and property. They felt that because of what was going on, their future rights to live in the kind of world they wanted to live in with the environment the way it is now were being destroyed. So what happened? Well, in Oregon, that was upheld to a certain extent. Then it went to the next court up, and the next court up says, we can't judge that. There are no laws about that. So we just have to throw it out because there's no grounds on which you can argue this case. But if we had laws that supported the rights of future generations, then cases could be made to whenever felt there was a violation of that. And I don't know about you, but when I think about my grandnieces and grandnephews, I think, what kind of a world are they going to grow up in? With the world that I knew, the natural world that I knew, being destroyed systematically, really, for, as Marianne said, economic profit and power of the current government.
Well, we need the young people to speak up and stand up.
They did,
yeah,
in Oregon, and they were told, you can't do this because we don't have laws about it. So, and I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ellen. She's going to talk about another area of law which really has kind of betrayed us in a sense, I think.
Catherine, if you had heard, I'll come up front, all the different examples that we learned, and then to keep into our minds the details of it. But there are places in the world where rivers and mountains and ecosystems are being given rights. So it creates a global precedent that it could happen in New Zealand, it could happen in And it can happen to the Elwha River, which runs in Oregon and California. And this
No,
isn't.
it's in the Olympic
It's
Forest.
in the
Oh, the
Olympic
Elwha is
Forest.
in the Olympic Forest, and the Klamath
Mhm.
is in Oregon. And those are two examples where, through legal systems, indigenous people got dams taken down. Sorry. And the salmon are running again. And all the natural environment. Yeah. So it reminds me of when I learned that a dead whale is worth millions of dollars. A live one is given $0 value. That's the wackiness. And I guess that goes, when we learned the definition of private property that our law is currently, it was 1765. William Blackstone, the first Oxford professor of English law, defined private property this way: sole and despotic dominion which one man claims and exercises over the external things of this world in total exclusion of the right of any other individual in the universe. And then I think about our SNJM documents about inter collaboration, thinking of the whole, the sole and despotic dominion. But that has been the basis of our understanding of private property. When I reflected on it, I thought it might have been a step forward at the time that property could be protected by law from just the king or the strong man. Wait, this is mine, you can't just take it. And we have private property, us as individuals, right? And as sisters, we have private property. But as we move toward this evolution of rights that allows other earth beings to also have what they call in court standing, or rights that you can be considered a being in court, I thought it's always an uphill battle. And then I thought, wait, there's my old thinking, to think of it, uphill battle, back to the Revolutionary War, right? What if it really is instilled in our evolving humanity, if we can pay attention to it? This desire to take care, to make things better, to find the way. We know that humanity has evolved so far. Can we do this too? And I think it's about that, believing that the moral arc of the universe bends toward justice. It may take a long time, but there's a invitation and energy and movement in us that we can nourish. So I think, and we can be called to the peaceable kingdom. We can feed on this kind of image and this. And if we ourselves are moving and living from that world and influencing others from the triangular dominant model to truly a circular model, the peaceable kingdom. So I'll just go right into some animism.
No, I want to do one more thing first.
Deal. I think that's all I, yeah.
I want to just point out on the back of the last page of your handout, there is one other kind of legal thing that is of interest, I think. 2 states in the United States have in their state constitutions what they call green amendments. State of Pennsylvania says, the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. They're the common property of all people, including generations yet to come. As a trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all the people. Well, what does that do? That gives folks that feel that there's a violation of that, it gives them a legal standing, or not a standing, it gives them a legal principle on which they can base an argument. So it allows something to go forward in court that then could be decided in favor of clean air, pure water, the environment, generations yet to come. Montana also has one, and this is the wording, it's a slightly different wording, but the idea is the same. Well, the thing that I found interesting when I looked this up, at the last legislature, there was a group that tried to bring this Green Amendment idea to our state, to Washington. It didn't go anywhere. They're bringing it back, but right now they're looking for a representative or a legislator who will sponsor it to bring it into the legislation for this year. Now, it strikes me that if we have any connection to anybody in our legislature that we feel might be sympathetic, we could write that person and ask them, would you sponsor this? Would you bring it in there? Because I personally believe that this would give some ground for protecting the environment in a different way than we can do right now. So, yes.
Do you have the name or a description of that, so when we write, we can say, this is what it is we're talking about? It's there.
It's on your handout on the last page.
Excellent, okay.
Okay. Because I'm thinking that there's a couple of legislators from Spokane that I think are not, might be sympathetic. I'm thinking Roselli, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to do a little bit more research on that. And now, one of the other things that happened on this, and we'll go back to Mary Ellen, one of the people said, unless we become really close to nature, we cannot really begin to live these kinds of new attitudes. So a part of our coursework was a process called animism, and she's going to talk to you about that.
Thanks, Catherine. And I'm going to try and do it so I can hand it back to you for some more. So,
I don't have to go.
okay, a part of the course, I'm going to, that the psychology of care for the earth and a psychology of being able to identify ourselves as part of this requires practice. And the founder said, I'm a lawyer, I practice law. We're a religious people, we practice our faith, right? And so we're invited into some practices that help us connect with nature and love all of creation and recognize our place as part of it. So I want to talk briefly about maybe the first 6 practices that we were invited to. And the first one is just to find what they call a sit space, which for a child could be down a slippery slope and sitting there by the river day after day. For me, it's on my porch looking out at, really, I'm lucky to live in a neighborhood with lots of trees and bushes. I have planted some of them. A place where you can sit for a good 15 or 20 minutes. And instead of shutting down, going inside, you open up. Open all your senses. Pay attention to everything. What do you see? What do you hear? Just opening to all that life around you and let it come into you. And I've found when I've done this, it's addictive because it does pour life into you. Into me, it has. There's a lot more going on out there than I realized when I wasn't paying attention. And then to really pay attention to one sense at a time and just spend the whole 15 minutes with what you're hearing or what you're smelling. Another time. Another, these are weeks at a time, getting that practice, getting that it's familiar. Befriend a tree. I haven't done this one yet, so it's kind of overwhelming me. Find 7 connections that between that tree, like with the soil, with the worms, with the air. I know I do love to watch the trees, across the deciduous trees, how each leaf is responding to the breeze. Each leaf is dancing. Clearly all of them part of that one tree, for me, it's such an example of the Holy Spirit at work in us too. But this finding 7 connections and then finding 7 connections to each of those, so you've got 49 connections. And I see Joan smiling, and I think that Sufi encourages these kinds of awarenesses. Am I right?
I love what you're saying.
So I have the connections online, actually. If any of you find that you would like to hear the teacher guide you through some of these practices, I can make them available to you. One is the breath to surrender, and I think we can do that one right here. And instead of trying to activate all our thinking, it's to deactivate so that we're able to be accessible to the languages of the world around us. So it's taking a deep breath and holding it and letting all your thoughts, feelings, concerns fill you up. And let them get bigger. Your worries, your feelings, your thoughts, just bigger and bigger and bigger, and then blow them out. Let them go. And we're encouraged to do it lying down, but you can also do it in your sit space. Do it as you prepare for an encounter with another being. Then, doing that, we're encouraged to make ourselves available to relate with a plant. To empty ourselves of our thoughts and feelings. How many of you talk to your plants? And do you feel like, have any of you felt like a tree talked to you? Or your plant did? Yeah. It'll just happen. I remember shoveling the snow, and there was no snow around this particular tree, and I said, "Did you do that?" And the tree said, "I do far more for you than you will ever know." Said it as clear as that. But they do. But also, we have more. We evolved with all the rest of creation. We have capacity within us to pick up their ways of communicating. We know pheromones and underground networks and electric impulses and odors that we're not conscious of because we haven't learned to pay attention to them. So doing that, release, and then listening. And we can come with a question. I've been trying with my plants, do you like where I put you? What do you need from me? How can I help you? And listen for the answer. And just being sensitive to images, to thoughts, to feelings. She talks about learning to recognize our radar that we have and gives some exercises for that. And then she led us even to communicating with minerals. And so those lessons are available. I think I can send them to you. One that was very powerful, just the first one, just finding that sit space, opening myself to what's around me. It's hard for me to start my day now without doing that. But another one was putting my hand on my heart and thinking about my mother and being grateful for your mother. However she was, whoever she was, the gratitude for all that you have received from your mother and from her mother and from her mother. Are you doing it? And from her mother, and are you already back to somebody you have no idea who that woman was? And her mother. And her mother, and her mother, and her mother. until now, because we know that we've evolved, we come to a time when that mother would have been not quite human. And her mother, and her mother, and her mother, and her mother. Until we're back to the first mammals. And her mother, and her mother, and her mother. And you see how it takes us back to the Big Bang. We are all connected. We all did come from the same source. So to just take time to do those kinds of exercises of gratitude. What Joan said struck me very much. We were taught, to be anti-animism because it's somehow like nature worshiping. It's nature joining, being one with, learning to live our oneness. Actually, unless there are any questions or comments, I think
We can just
those
close,
are the key.
close with the song.
Anybody have any
That's great.
bursting more? You're welcome.
We just want to say thank you all for coming, and we hope that this was somewhat interesting to you and perhaps gave you some new insights, new learnings.
And I do want to say it's so affirming for me that we as people who practice our religion and can practice this oneing, and Richard Rohr has been inviting us and we're finding those other invitations. We are joining that evolutionary process to the transformation that has to happen. So there is a place for us.
So I would invite us to take our handout, and the first page is the song that we've been listening to, and invite you to sing along with the song or not as you wish, but we'll just listen to it as a way to end our time together in terms of being more in tune with being part of creation and not above creation.
Open you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Mariella, where did you guys find this?
So, we paid for it. And I don't know how much that, I mean,
It costs like $150 for that book.
yeah,
Oh, for the-
450, I think, for the program. Mimi roped us into it and got permission for it. So I'm just even wondering, the videos, I tried to run off some papers that show the links, but it's useless on a piece of paper, the link to the person who does the animism exercises, practices. And I just was asking myself, I can get it because the site recognizes my computer. I'll have to try it on somebody who didn't take the program and see if it's still accessible. So let me do that, and if you want some of those,
No, I'm
The textbook.
curious as to where you found the course, because
it's,
Deep Time Network, it's,
Uh-huh.
deep,
Deep Time.
DTnetwork.org. D, T,
if you put in Deep Time Network, Google Deep Time Network, it'll take you right to it.
Yeah.
And it will advertise some courses, and there's one for free, that's for teachers, and get you in. And then, they gave us so many other links that are not, paid for. So, I mean, constant referrals of links.
no,
Yeah.
I just
but this
want to know if my
particular-
sister is interested. My youngest sister worked for the Department of Ecology, and she did environmental impact statements, reviewed those, did, shoreline law, reviewed laws to come in to figure out how to enact them with the people, especially on shoreline and Puget Sound. So I'm curious if she knows about this and ask her, might be something she's interested in.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's working to create an Earth Law movement.
okay,
Yeah.
no.
thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank
And we
you.
hope we didn't overwhelm you, but
We did.
I think we're just, becoming aware of these things, I think, is the first step. And being together, it's not just a change of,
Process,
It's a long process, it's
It's
a
a
real
long-
conversion.
yes.
yeah.
Also, in case you're interested more of the animism, the woman who did that teaching is named Janet Marley, Marley, and I don't know if she has any other stuff online, the website, a different website that's just her.
Yeah, I couldn't find one, but it's worth looking, Janet Marley. And you let Mimi or Catherine know if you're interested, and we'll see what we can dig up of access. What you wanted to ask Mimi? Did you?
Yeah, I wanted to just mention that I bet it was at least 30 years ago, some of us made a retreat at Fort Wright College. Mimi and Sue Woodruff and who else were on the team for giving that retreat at least 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And my guess is that the talk you gave today was very similar to the one you gave then. We had several prophets in our midst about
Yes.
all of this, Joan Christine and Evelyn Ferguson and Mary Ann Blunt, and the list goes on and on. Sue Woodruff was part of that retreat. It just makes me think, in our little short lifetimes, even with all the technology now, it's like one step forward, 2 steps back. It's like, we want so much to bring completion to things, and it simply isn't gonna happen in our little lifetimes, but we keep trying and trying to swim upstream, but I was just remembering that, Mimi, I think, wouldn't you agree that most of what you said today, with the exception
Pretty
of a
much.
couple of technical terms, were
Yes.
very much what you presented then, 30 years ago, and we're still trying. And then my second comment to our community is, I wish, sometimes we have all the good intentions, but we're out to save the world and the universe and everything, and it sort of wears you out when you're, in your late 80s. But I'm thinking, I'm wishing that sometimes we could take a focus, as we've done before at chapters on water or something where we can all internationally, globally unite and keep it a little more than trying to save everything and everybody. And maybe, I don't know if there's any room still at our next upcoming chapter. I don't have any idea what the agenda is, other than, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if we could revisit this in some way and get some kind of international focus, that might help us all to kind of take another step forward together.
Maybe we could encourage people that are sending to chapter, the delegates, to not be too concerned about restructuring us so neatly that it'll prevail for the next 100 years, and let it be a little bit messy to save time for this.
I
just
love a
hate
quote of
looking at our neighbors.
Teilhard de Chardin's. He,
Yes.
just what you were saying, Joan, about the how slow the change comes. He says, it's a longer quote, but he says, trust always the long, slow process of God. So,
We're in
Yeah.
And in some ways, technology, it's both a service and a not, because it wants to fast forward us every day. Something big changes, the next day
Faster
changes
and faster.
forward, backwards, upside down, pop, 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 you know, so it's a different evolution of things with the way technology is moving, and I don't know exactly what that says, except I think what Mary Ellen said, in my words anyway, and you said it so beautifully in your words, but a lot of it is deepening our spirit, and not always just the doing part.
I love Pope Francis says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And we want to go far. So, I mean, we have that head start. We're community. We understand the importance of community and how to really embrace the power, the good power that gives us. And then one of the earth care lawyers, you know, there are lawyers practicing earth law. And one of them said, yeah, we lost the case, but we lost it better.
All right, we don't want to keep you, so.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
again
you.
for coming.
Thank
and
you.
as I say, we have some interest to you, and we'll see some of you on December 6th, if not before.
And there's little to-go containers over here, if anybody wants to take some for later, please.
thank you, Mother
And
Yet.
be sure to take the cards
Vegan.
if you're writing cards anymore these days.
And these are a bonus. That's the prayer from Laudato Si. And a Laudato Si Washington State group is forming. Mimi read this prayer. They said, oh, it's so beautiful. Where is it from? Laudato Si. So invite